The massive screen in Earth's central command flickered with an alien face that looked like polished granite. The creature's voice boomed through the speakers, making the windows shake. "You have 24 Earth hours to surrender. Your species will serve as labor class in the Galactic Council or face complete destruction." The alien's 6 eyes blinked in sequence. "Choose wisely, humans." The screen went dark, leaving the room in heavy silence. Around the oval table, 30 of Earth's highest-ranking military leaders sat perfectly still. Some might have mistaken their stillness for fear. They would have been wrong. Admiral Tom James stood up slowly, his weathered face showing no emotion. At 60 years old, he had led Earth's unified forces for the past decade. His simple blue uniform carried only 3 stars. He had always believed in being understated. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice calm and steady, "it's time to activate Project Pandora." The tension in the room changed. A few of the generals actually smiled. General Mary West, head of Global Defense, leaned forward. "Are we certain they took the bait?" "Completely," Admiral James replied, pressing a button on the table. A 3D hologram appeared, showing hundreds of alien ships in Earth's orbit. "Their scans show exactly what we wanted them to see: outdated satellites, primitive nuclear weapons, and basic defense systems." Colonel Robert Green, their head of intelligence, pulled up more data on everyone's screens. "For 5 years, we've fed them false information. They think we're barely past our industrial age in terms of warfare. Their arrogance is working against them." Deep beneath their feet, in bunkers that stretched for miles under the Earth's surface, machinery hummed to life. Project Pandora was waking up. "What about civilian evacuation?" asked General West. Admiral James nodded to a young officer at the end of the table. The officer quickly displayed a map showing green dots moving across every continent. "Operation Underground is proceeding as planned," the officer reported. 80% of major cities have been quietly evacuated through the subway networks we've been building for the past 20 years. The aliens think people are fleeing in panic. A quiet chuckle went around the table. Humanity had learned long ago that appearing weak could be the greatest strength. Admiral James walked to the window, looking up at the sky where alien ships hummed like dark stars. "Do you know what makes humans different from every other species in the galaxy?" he asked, not turning around. The room waited. "Our imagination," he continued. "Every other species evolved to avoid their fears, to run from them. But humans," he turned back to face the room, his eyes gleaming. "We turned our fears into entertainment, into art, into weapons." On screens around the room, status updates began flowing in from Project Pandora sites worldwide. Green lights flashed one after another. "For 10,000 years, we've been perfecting the art of fear," Admiral James said. "Every horror story, every nightmare, every dark thought humanity has ever had, we've captured them all. And now, we're going to share them." Colonel Green's tablet beeped. "Sir, the last civilian groups are entering the bunkers. We'll be ready in 3 hours." Admiral James nodded and addressed the room. "The Council thinks they're facing a primitive species armed with simple nuclear weapons. They're expecting bullets and bombs." He smiled slightly. "Instead, they're going to face something they've never imagined possible. They're going to face humanity's darkest dreams." The room filled with determined faces. They had waited years for this moment. "Send our response to the Council," Admiral James ordered. "Tell them." He paused, allowing himself a small smile. "Tell them Earth respectfully declines their offer, and we look forward to discussing terms after they experience what humanity is truly capable of." As the message was sent, red lights began pulsing softly throughout the command center. In tunnels deep below, Project Pandora continued its awakening. Soon, the Galactic Council would learn why humans were the only species in the galaxy who chose to embrace their fears instead of running from them. They were about to learn what true terror meant. 5 years earlier, the first alien ship appeared on a quiet Tuesday morning. It emerged from behind the moon, a massive vessel that gleamed like black pearl in the sunlight. Earth's telescopes captured every detail of its approach, though the aliens didn't know that. In the White House Situation Room, President Jack Wilson watched the screens with carefully hidden interest. Next to him, Admiral James looked younger then, with fewer gray hairs and the same steady gaze. "They think we can barely track them," Admiral James whispered. "Our hidden satellites are picking up everything." The alien ship stopped just above the atmosphere, and a smaller vessel descended toward Washington, D.C. Global news channels broadcast its arrival, showing crowds of people pointing at the sky in apparent wonder and fear. What the aliens didn't know was that most of those people were trained actors. The landing site was the National Mall, a wide-open space between monuments. As planned, Earth's primitive military vehicles surrounded the area, their weapons looking obsolete and basic. High Commander Stone of the Galactic Council stepped out of the ship. His granite-like face and 6 eyes scanned the welcoming committee. Behind him, 4 guards carried weapons that looked highly advanced compared to Earth's visible technology. President Wilson stepped forward, playing his role perfectly. "Welcome to Earth," he said, his voice shaking just enough to suggest fear. "We are honored by your presence." Stone's translator converted his words into a booming voice. "Your planet has been noticed by the Galactic Council. We have come to evaluate your species for potential membership." His eyes narrowed. "Though I see you are quite primitive." Admiral James, standing behind the president, kept his face carefully blank. Inside one of his coat buttons, a highly advanced scanner was recording everything about the aliens' biology and technology. "Please," President Wilson gestured toward the White House, "would you join us for discussions?" As they walked, Stone's guards scanned everything with their devices. They saw exactly what humans wanted them to see: simple radio waves, basic electrical systems, and primitive computer networks. In the meeting room, Stone didn't bother hiding his superiority. "Your species has barely mastered nuclear fission," he said, looking at Earth's leaders with all 6 eyes. "You still burn fossil fuels. Your weapons are amusing." "We are a young species," Admiral James said meekly, while his button scanner collected data about Stone's biological stress points and nerve clusters. Stone touched a device on his wrist, displaying a hologram of Earth. "Our scans show no significant defense systems, no space fleet, not even proper orbital stations." He leaned forward. "The Council has decided you will be classified as a labor-grade species." President Wilson wiped his brow with a handkerchief, appearing nervous. What does that mean?" "It means you will serve more advanced species. Your planet has resources we need. Your people will work to extract them." Stone's mouth formed what might have been a smile. "Accept this honor, and your species will survive. Resist." He let the threat hang in the air. "We will need time to inform our people," President Wilson said quickly, "to prepare them." Stone stood up. "You have 5 Earth years to prepare your population for service. When we return, we expect full compliance." He turned to leave, then paused. "Any resistance will be met with extinction." After the aliens departed, the act continued for 3 more days. News channels showed people panicking. Leaders made frightened speeches, all carefully staged. In a secure bunker deep underground, President Wilson watched the alien ship leave Earth's space. His nervous demeanor vanished. "Did we get everything we need?" he asked Admiral James. The Admiral nodded, reviewing data from his scanner. "Complete biological readings, psychological responses, technology signatures. They showed us exactly what we needed to know." He looked up. "They have no defense against Project Pandora. They don't even know such attacks are possible." President Wilson's face turned serious. "Then we have 5 years to perfect our weapon. Begin Phase 2. As orders went out across the globe, humanity began its real work. Deep underground, in secret facilities across every continent, they started building something the aliens couldn't imagine. a weapon that would turn their own fears against them. The countdown to humanity's revelation had begun. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Commander Mark stood in front of a massive window that looked into Project Pandora's core. Behind the thick glass, a sphere of dark metal floated in the center of a chamber that stretched 100 feet high. Pulses of red light moved across its surface like blood through veins. "Status report," he said into his radio. "All systems running at 98%, replied Dr. Anna, the lead scientist. She stood at her control station, her fingers moving across screens filled with data. "The fear patterns are stable. Test subjects showed perfect response rates." Around them, the underground facility hummed with power. This was just one of 12 similar sites hidden across Earth. The aliens above had no idea they existed. Their scans couldn't penetrate this deep, and even if they could, the facilities were shielded by technology humanity had kept secret for decades. Commander Mark's radio crackled. "Sir, evacuation of Denver is complete. Last civilians are entering the bunker network now." "Good," he replied. "What about the alien response?" "They think we're running scared. Their ships are moving into position for their attack." Mark allowed himself a small smile. Everything was going according to plan. Dr. Anna called him over to her station. On her screen, a 3D model showed the alien fleet spreading out above Earth's major cities. "Look at their formation," she said. "They're positioning themselves exactly where we need them." The commander nodded. "How long until Project Pandora reaches full power?" 1 hour. She pulled up another screen showing the dark sphere's energy levels. "We've loaded every nightmare, every horror story, every primal fear humanity has ever created. The psychological impact will be..." She paused, unprecedented. In another part of the facility, technicians worked at rows of computers. They weren't controlling weapons or targeting systems. Instead, they were fine-tuning the most terrifying thoughts humanity had ever conceived. "Show me the test footage," Mark ordered. Dr. Anna pressed a button, and a video played on the main screen. It showed an alien test subject, captured secretly years ago, exposed to a tiny fraction of Project Pandora's power. The alien's 6 eyes had gone wide with terror, its stone-like skin turning pale. It experienced fears it had never evolved to handle, horrors its species had never imagined possible. "Their minds can't process what we're going to show them," Dr. Anna explained. "They evolved to avoid fear, to run from it. But humans," she gestured to the sphere, "we turned fear into an art form. We seek it out. We create it. And now, we've weaponized it." Mark's radio came to life again. "Sir, alien ships are beginning their descent. They're broadcasting their ultimatum to all Earth frequencies." "Let them come," Mark said. He turned to Dr. Anna. "Begin final activation sequence." Throughout the facility, red warning lights began to pulse. The dark sphere in the chamber spun faster, its surface now crackling with energy. Teams of psychologists and fear experts took their stations, ready to direct the weapon's output. "All Pandora sites reporting ready," an operator announced. "Global synchronization at 100%. Mark watched as more screens lit up around the control room. Each showed a different alien ship entering Earth's atmosphere. The aliens thought they were about to begin their conquest. Instead, they were flying straight into humanity's trap. "They expect us to fight with missiles and bombs," Dr. Anna said softly. "They're prepared for physical warfare. But not for this," Mark finished. "Not for what humanity can imagine." The sphere's rotation reached its peak. Energy readings maxed out across all stations. Through the window, the dark metal now looked like it was bleeding light. "Project Pandora at full power," Dr. Anna reported. "Ready to transmit on your command." Commander Mark took one last look at the alien ships on the screens. They had no idea what was coming. No way to prepare for what humanity was about to unleash. "Begin transmission," he ordered. "Show them what fear really means." The sphere pulsed once, and humanity's weapon was unleashed. Above ground, alien ships hung motionless in the sky, about to learn why humans were the only species in the galaxy who had mastered the art of terror. The real battle was about to begin. The first alien ship was directly above New York when Project Pandora's wave hit it. On Earth's hidden monitors, operators watched as the massive vessel suddenly stopped its descent. In the Rocky Mountain facility, Commander Mark and Dr. Anna watched their screens intently. First contact in 3, 2, 1. The alien ship's lights flickered. Inside, its crew experienced something no alien species had ever faced before: pure, concentrated human terror. "Show me their bridge feed," Mark ordered. The main screen lit up with images from inside the alien ship. The stone-faced crew members were frozen in their seats, all 6 eyes on each face wide with horror. Their captain, a veteran of a dozen conquest campaigns, gripped his command chair so hard his rocky fingers left dents in the metal. What is this?" the alien captain whispered, his translator barely working as he shook. In his mind, he saw endless darkness filled with things that shouldn't exist. Horrors humanity had imagined over thousands of years flooded his thoughts. Dr. Anna checked her readings. The fear response is even stronger than we predicted. Their brains have no defense against this kind of psychological attack. More ships entered the attack range. On the massive display wall, dozens of alien vessels began showing signs of distress. Some started drifting off course. Others froze in place. A few began to turn around, their engines firing randomly as their crews panicked. "Sir," a young operator called out, "we're picking up their communications." The room filled with alien voices, all speaking over each other in terror. "It's in our minds. Make it stop. How do they know our deepest fears? This is impossible." Commander Mark allowed himself a grim smile. "Increase power to stage 2. Dr. Anna nodded and adjusted the controls. The dark sphere in the chamber spun faster, its red pulses growing stronger, transmitting humanity's collective nightmares now. Above Earth, the alien fleet was in chaos. Ships that had come to conquer now faced something worse than any weapon they had prepared for. Each crew member experienced their own personal horror show, pulled from humanity's darkest imaginations. In the Council's command ship, High Commander Stone struggled to maintain control. His granite face had turned almost white. "How?" he demanded of his science officer. "How are they doing this?" The science officer couldn't answer. On his screens, readings made no sense. There were no energy weapons, no physical attacks, just waves of pure psychological terror flooding their ships. Back in the facility, Dr. Anna explained to Commander Mark. "They're experiencing every horror movie, every nightmare, every dark thought humans have ever had. Their minds can't handle it. They never evolved to process fear the way we do." "Show me the fleet status," Mark ordered. A new map appeared, showing hundreds of alien ships in Earth's orbit. Many were now moving erratically. Some had turned their weapons on empty space, firing at horrors only they could see. Others had simply shut down, their crews unable to function. "Sir," an operator reported, "we're detecting escape attempts. 3 ships just jumped to faster than light speed." More alien communications filled the room. "Retreat. We must retreat. These humans, they're not primitive. They're monsters. The stories, the images, make them stop." Dr. Anna checked her data again. Their fear response is overwhelming their logical thinking. Just as we planned. She looked at Commander Mark. "Should we proceed to stage 3? Mark watched the alien fleet's growing chaos. "Not yet. Let them take this message back to their council first. Let them understand exactly what they're dealing with." On the screens, more ships began to flee. The mighty invasion fleet that had come to conquer Earth was breaking apart, undone not by advanced technology or superior firepower, but by humanity's unique relationship with fear itself. "Send the message," Mark ordered. Dr. Anna typed quickly, and a transmission went out to all alien ships still capable of receiving it. "This is only a taste of humanity's power. Retreat now, or experience the full depth of what we can imagine. The exodus began immediately. Ship after ship vanished into faster-than-light speed, carrying with them a new understanding of the species they had wrongly judged as primitive. Humanity had revealed its true strength, and the galaxy would never be the same. In the depths of his command ship, High Commander Stone fought against waves of terror that crashed through his mind. His rocky skin had turned almost pure white, and all 6 of his eyes darted around, seeing horrors that weren't there. "Status report," he shouted, but most of his bridge crew had curled into balls, overwhelmed by the human weapon. One brave officer managed to respond. Half the fleet has retreated, Commander. The rest are." He couldn't finish as a new wave of fear struck him. Deep in the Rocky Mountain facility, Dr. Anna watched the alien reactions with intense interest. "Commander Mark," she called out, "look at these readings. Their minds are creating even worse fears than what we're sending them." Mark moved to her station, studying the data. "They're amplifying our transmissions." "Yes," she replied, excitement in her voice. "Their minds are so unused to fear that they're making it worse. They're taking our horror stories and making them even more terrifying in their panic." Around them, the control room hummed with activity. Operators monitored screens showing alien ships in various states of chaos. Some spun in circles, their crews too terrified to control them. Others fired weapons at empty space, fighting enemies that existed only in their minds. "Sir," a young technician called out, "incoming transmission from Admiral James." The Admiral's face appeared on the main screen. "Project Pandora is exceeding all expectations," he said, looking pleased. "The Council's fleet is in complete disarray. Time to move to Stage 3. Commander Mark nodded to Dr. Anna. She turned to her controls, fingers flying across the screens. "Initializing Stage 3, transmitting humanity's collective fear archive." The dark sphere in the chamber began to pulse faster, its red glow now almost blinding. This was what they had been preparing for, the full unleashing of humanity's power. In orbit, the remaining alien ships faced something even worse than before. Now they experienced not just horror stories and nightmares, but every primal fear humans had evolved with. The dark of caves where predators lurked. The depths of oceans hiding unknown monsters. The endless void of space filled with unimaginable terrors. High Commander Stone's ship rocked as his weapons officer, lost in panic, fired at shadows. "Stop," Stone shouted. "Control yourselves." But even his own mind was filling with images he couldn't fight. Through the terror, he finally understood. Humans weren't primitive at all. They were something far more dangerous, a species that had mastered fear itself. Back in the facility, Dr. Anna's screen showed new data. "Sir, their brain patterns are approaching critical levels. They've never evolved any defense against this kind of attack." Commander Mark watched as more alien ships flowed into space. "Send the final message." Across every alien communication channel, a simple message played. "We are humanity. We don't just face our fears. We create them. We shape them. We master them. Remember this lesson." In his ship, High Commander Stone made one last attempt to fight back. Launch all weapons," he ordered. But his weapons officer was lost in terror, seeing monsters in every shadow. His navigation officer couldn't tell what was real anymore. And Stone himself felt his granite-like body shaking as waves of human nightmares flooded his mind. "Full retreat," he finally gasped. Save whoever you can." The remaining alien ships turned away from Earth, their crews forever changed by what they had experienced. They had come expecting to find a primitive species. Instead, they found the masters of fear itself. In the Rocky Mountain facility, cheers erupted as the last alien ship fled. But Commander Mark and Dr. Anna remained serious, watching their screens. "They'll be back," Mark said quietly. Dr. Anna nodded. "Yes, but not as conquerors. They'll return as diplomats, desperate to understand how we did this." She smiled slightly. "And we'll show them that Project Pandora was just the beginning." Above them, the dark sphere continued to pulse with red light, humanity's ultimate weapon, now ready to defend Earth against any threat. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Never underestimate a species that turns its fears into power. And somewhere in deep space, fleeing alien ships carried tales of the humans, the species that had weaponized terror itself. High Commander Stone's ship limped through space, its engines damaged from the crew's panic-driven actions. In his private chamber, Stone sat motionless, his stone-like skin still pale with terror. The images wouldn't leave his mind. "Commander," his second-in-command spoke through the door. "The Council demands an immediate report." Stone didn't want to face them. How could he explain what had happened? How could he describe what the humans had done to them? But he had no choice. With shaking hands, he activated the holographic communication system. 12 faces appeared around him, the Galactic Council in full attendance. Their expressions showed they had already heard some of the news. "Explain," the first speaker demanded. "How did a primitive species defeat our invasion fleet?" Stone tried to steady himself, but his voice trembled. They were never primitive. It was all a deception." He paused, fighting back the terror that still gripped him. "They had a weapon. Something we've never seen before." "What kind of weapon?" another council member asked. "Energy beams. Advanced missiles." "No." Stone's 6 eyes closed briefly. "They attacked our minds. They showed us horrors, things that shouldn't exist, things that couldn't exist. But they made us see them, feel them, experience them." In the council chamber, confused murmurs broke out. One member spoke up. "That's impossible. No species can create fear itself. Humans can." Stone's voice was barely a whisper. "They don't just understand fear. They seek it out. They create it for entertainment. They've spent their entire history mastering it." On Earth, Commander Mark and Dr. Anna watched the council meeting through their hidden surveillance systems. They could see the growing realization on the alien faces as Stone described Project Pandora's effects. "Show them," Mark ordered quietly. Dr. Anna pressed a series of controls. Through the communication link, a tiny fraction of Project Pandora's power leaked into the council chamber. The effect was immediate. All 12 council members stiffened in their seats. Their faces showed the first touch of human-crafted terror. "This," Stone said, recognizing what was happening, "this is just a taste of their power. What they did to our fleet was 1,000 times stronger." The first speaker, fighting against the fear now crawling through his mind, tried to maintain control. "How? How can they do this?" "Because," Stone replied, "humans are different. Every species in the galaxy evolved to avoid fear, to run from it. But humans," he shuddered, "humans turned it into an art form. They study it. They create it. They enjoy it." In the Rocky Mountain facility, Admiral James had joined Mark and Anna. They watched as the mighty Galactic Council experienced true fear for the first time. "Shall we end it?" Dr. Anna asked. Admiral James nodded. "Send the terms." A new hologram appeared before the council. Simple, clear demands from Earth. 1. Recognition of Earth as a sovereign power. 2. Immediate withdrawal of all alien forces. 3. A formal apology for the attempted invasion. 4. Opening of diplomatic relations as equals. The council members, still shaking from their brief exposure to Project Pandora, looked at each other in silence. "If you refuse," Stone added, "knowing what humans were capable of now, they will show us the full extent of their power. What you just felt, that was nothing." The first speaker took only moments to decide. "We accept their terms," he declared. "All in favor?" Every council member raised their hands. None wanted to face the full force of humanity's weapon. Back on Earth, Admiral James smiled slightly. "Send the final message." Through the communication link, his voice reached the council. "We look forward to peaceful relations. Remember, What you experienced today was just one of humanity's capabilities. We have many more surprises for those who would threaten us. The council session ended quickly after that. As the holograms faded, Stone remained in his chamber, knowing the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had just changed everything. And in the Rocky Mountain facility, Project Pandora's sphere continued to pulse with red light, ready to defend Earth again if needed. But somehow, everyone knew that wouldn't be necessary. The galaxy had learned its lesson about underestimating humanity. 1 month after the Council's surrender, Earth's Central Command hummed with new activity. Alien diplomats from 20 different species filled the halls, each hoping to understand the species that had defeated the mighty Galactic Council. Admiral James stood at the window of his office, watching a diplomatic shuttle land. Next to him, Commander Mark and Dr. Anna reviewed reports on their tablets. "How are our guests handling their tour of the public facilities?" Admiral James asked. Dr. Anna smiled. "They're still nervous. Every time they see a red light, they flinch." Word of Project Pandora has spread through the galaxy. "And the real facilities?" Mark asked. "Still completely hidden," she replied. "They have no idea that what they're seeing is just for show." The door chimed, and President Wilson entered. He looked pleased. "The Council just approved our appointment to the High Security Committee. We're now officially part of the galaxy's defense force." Admiral James turned from the window. "And they still think Project Pandora was our only secret weapon." "They do." The president's eyes twinkled. "They're so focused on the fear weapon, they haven't even thought to look for anything else." Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, past the public areas that amazed the alien diplomats, the real work continued. Project Pandora had been Phase 1. In deeper, more secure levels, hundreds of scientists and engineers worked on projects Oracle, Phoenix, and Lazarus. In a hidden conference room, Dr. Anna brought up new data on the main screen. The aliens' fear of Project Pandora has made them completely overlook our other advances. Their own terror is blinding them. "Just as planned," Mark nodded. "While they focus on understanding how we weaponized fear, our real developments stay hidden." President Wilson studied the screen. "How long until the next phase is ready?" "Project Oracle's telepathic network will be online in 6 months," Dr. Anna reported. "Phoenix's matter manipulation system is already working in tests, and Lazarus—" She paused, smiling. "Well, the aliens wouldn't believe that even if we told them." Above them, alien diplomats toured what they thought was Project Pandora's control center. It was actually a carefully crafted fake, designed to keep them focused on fear as a weapon. None of them suspected that humanity's mastery of terror was just the beginning. "The council meeting starts in an hour," President Wilson reminded them. "Our first appearance as full members." Admiral James nodded. "Time to play our part again. Remember, we're the species that only knows fear as a weapon. Nothing more." In the council chamber, High Commander Stone, now Earth's liaison to the council, waited nervously. When the human delegation entered, led by Admiral James, all other species moved slightly away. Their fear was obvious. "Welcome, humans," the first speaker announced, trying to hide his unease. "We look forward to learning from your unique perspectives." Admiral James bowed slightly. "We look forward to sharing our knowledge of defense technologies with our new allies." None of the council members noticed his careful word choice. None of them wondered what other defense technologies humans might have created. Their fear of Project Pandora had made them blind to the greater truth. Back on Earth, Dr. Anna stood in the real control center, deep underground. Around her, screens showed the progress of humanity's other projects. Project Oracle would let humans read minds. Phoenix would let them reshape matter itself. And Lazarus would change everything. "They think they understand us now," she said softly. "They think fear is our greatest weapon." Commander Mark joined her, watching the screens. "That's the beauty of Project Pandora. It worked exactly as planned. Not just as a weapon, but as the perfect distraction. Above them, the galaxy's most powerful beings continued to fear humanity for their mastery of terror. Meanwhile, beneath their feet, humans prepared to reveal that fear was just the beginning of their capabilities. The real revolution was still to come.